Hello, everyone, and welcome to Yapisode 1 of It's Not You, It's Me podcast. I am DS Choi, your host, and for those who don't know, I actually started with a Yapisode 0, so this isn't the first episode. But regardless, thank you for tuning in. Today's episode consists of me sharing about my struggles being consistent with recording podcasts, specifically just even being able to press the record button. And so, uh, these are past recordings, and it had been 2 weeks since I recorded the episode 0, and I talk about that basically with the help of my mentor coach. And so I hope you enjoy. And before I forget, there's a point in the video where I talk about a cat video, a very cute yap to nap cat video. And so if you're on YouTube, you can see what I'm referring to. And I think it was way too cute not to share. And so with that out of the way, hope you enjoy. Let's yap. So I'm starting my coaching business, and I have a mentor coach who supports me. And basically, I'm recording this after I finished my session with her. Shout out to Coach Flame. Um, basically, I've been wanting to start this podcast, and I made the episode 0. I don't know if this is going to be episode 1 or not, but basically, it's I'm I feel like I just need to record, Like sometimes I feel like I need to script something. Sometimes I feel like I am rambling or not being clear, whatever it may be. And that gets in the way of just recording, just pressing record. So, I mean, let me tell you the story about like even what happened last week. Last week I was so excited to like record more podcasts, but it didn't happen. And why didn't it happen? I was thinking about because I don't. There's a part of me that doesn't want to show my face. Like I've done streaming, um, YouTube here and there, and there's just times where you don't want to show up. You don't want to show your face, and I don't know if it's because I feel like it's not cozy enough. Um, I'm a dude, and jokingly, it's just like I'm not pretty enough. It's just more of just like I just want to yap. Like I don't want to have to worry about anything else. And because the more I think about other things like the scene prep, background prep, or like how do I look, how do I sound, all these things just get in the way from pressing that record button. And so one of the major things last week that got in the way of pressing the record button was I wanted to make if I'm gonna do mostly an audio podcast with like if you're not seeing video of me, I wanted something for you to watch in the background of something that's not just a image. But I guess at the same time, people don't really watch podcasts for the facial expressions. They just listen to listen. And so yeah, maybe basically I'm making it harder than it needs to be. But I really wanted to like basically kind of like if you're familiar with VTubers, they have basically a 2D image or a 3D figure, like graphic designed image where you can have different facial expressions, and people do use it for live streams. Um, and there are programs now that can kind of make that process easier. You have this design and you can do like facial tracking. And so it can, if you just upload an audio file, it can automate lip syncing to that. So even the mouth expressions can be mapped easily. Um, and if you're recording it live, then it can follow your facial expressions, whether you're blinking, whether you're laughing. You can kind of preset those things or kind of do it manually as well as you're saying whatever on your podcast so that it kind of feels like they're your avatar, right? A moving, laughing, talking avatar. And that's kind of what I wanted to create for this podcast. But man, like, well, I mean, I have no graphic design background. I draw stick figures. It's great. But I was just like, if I can maybe use AI or something, use my photos as a seed and try to create some very simple like 2D images of myself that I can kind of rig to a motion capture, so that when I record podcasts, you can see this animated figure yapping instead of me. And I thought that would make recording a podcast just so much easier and less pressure in terms of yes, it's a lot of work to create that motion capture thing. Um, I should just call it the avatar, right? Like Creating the avatar would be an upfront cost and time and investment, but afterwards I would just be able to yap away and create my podcast. And I could also add things if I wanted to in the background very simply. And it would feel very natural and kind of feel my presence, I guess, versus just listening to the audio. That's what I was thinking. And I the recent Cyber Monday, Cyber Week sale, there was a program that I was planning to buy, and I did, and I tried it out. But I also realized I needed Photoshop and other tools to try to create my own custom avatar that could be used with the motion capture. And I didn't have that. I didn't have those skills, and so uh, I returned or asked for a refund for the program that I bought. It cost like around like $200. It's really not that bad, but I was just like, like for those who are wondering, I think it was uh, Cartoon Animator 5, and they had like a you could use their given program that has a facial motion capture, and it was very neat. They give you demos that you can use, but clearly I wanted to use my own avatars for it, and so I couldn't create it because I didn't have Photoshop, and I wouldn't even know how to really use all those things. And so after playing with it for a little bit, I was just like, not yet, perhaps in the future. And so let's give that up for now so that we can just yap. um, and then again, after I gave that up, I was just like, what if there's another solution that I can do to create a podcast that still has some visual element to it? And I forgot which YouTuber this was, but uh, someone I don't know, but it's a YouTuber that had a podcast, and sometimes they had 2D animations of their crew. There's 4 people, and they have 2D avatars of each. And the way they designed it was there was a white silhouette based on their avatar that would move and enlarge based on the audio level, so that when they're talking, you know which one is talking. And I thought that was brilliant. Of course, that's for like multi people, but I was just like, why don't I make that also for myself, right? So again, just create some sort of 2D AI generated animated avatar of myself. Um, have a silhouette that can enlarge based on this audio level. So when I speak, you can see it. Yeah. And there was a YouTube tutorial for it for that guy who did the podcast. I was like, and they used After Effects, I believe, and I don't have that either. I was just like, all right, could I use a different program to do it? And I wasn't sure. And so again, all this stuff, right, all this research, I'm glad I did it, but at the end of the day, it did not help me press record. And so it's just delaying everything. And so I've been so frustrated because I'm just like, I should just yap, just press the record button and yap. And uh, even my last episode, I think I talked about how I wanted to nap, and I've been falling into that so much. I'm just like, I think that's just the actual somatic response to my like desire to run away from the problem. It's just like, this is too arduous. I'm stressed out. Let me nap. And basically, last time I basically told myself, all right, no nap. We're just gonna yap, right? We're just gonna do it. And it was fine. Like, I yapped for like 40 minutes. It was great. And I felt that that was such a good experience to overcome that hurdle to just press record. And so I'm so glad I did it for the first episode. And it's been about 2 weeks since then. And I felt like I should have recorded one last week. And I was going to record one yesterday as well. And again, like all these things just keep bogging me down. Like there's an aspect of me that says, I want this podcast to be better. I want this podcast to like, so basically like another thing that prevented me from pressing record was I just wanted it to have some structure, so that like I'm just not yapping and doing stream of consciousness. And again, that's causing me to not press record. And so today I have my mentor coach meeting, and I'm just describing this frustration, and my coach, brilliant as she is helping me gain clarity on what's stopping me. And one of the main things is in coaching, we don't do it for any clients, but in this course that in this coach training that I was doing in one of the earlier courses, we talk about this thing called a basic assumption, and it's a very it's at the core of what causes us to stop doing what we want to do. Like it's like the main reason why we often get stuck in life, and we basically have developed this assumption throughout our lives that kind of dictates how we think the world works for us. And so for me, basically, the phrase is called "This isn't it." And for me, it manifests itself in a lot of perfectionism. Like I'm just like, this isn't good enough. This isn't what I want. That's not how I want to be. That's not how I want to sound. That's not how I want it to be structured. Like this isn't it. And sometimes it could show up in other ways, like, oh, this sounds like a good idea, but this also sounds like a good idea. And then you just kind of get stuck in this idea of like, this isn't exactly what I want. And like you might be pulled in one way or another. And so she asked me how because I know what my basic assumption is, and it's brilliant also because she shares that same basic assumption, and we're part of the same organization, and so she knows she's more of a veteran than I am in navigating this, but clearly I also know what it's like, and so it's very nice to have that kind of relationship with my coach where um, she gets me right. I feel seen. I feel heard. I love my mentor coach. And so she asks, what are some of the symptoms that often show up um, when you're having this basic assumption conversation? When you're having this isn't a conversation. And for me in this podcast is very clearly, I want to make it better. I want it to be more visually appealing. I want to make sure the audio quality is good. I want to make sure the structure is good. Like, uh, there's so many things I'm getting in my own way from pressing this record button. Similarly, somatically, I said, like, I want a nap. And so I was joking, like, instead of napping, I should just yap, right? And funny enough, I don't know if I'll include it in this video because part of me is just like, I don't really want it to be a visual thing. Oh, well, I mean, I didn't start it even as a visual thing. And so maybe adding a visual thing won't make much sense. But I just literally just typed on the Google search yap to nap. Yap, YAP, to nap, right? And or sorry, no, that's what showed up. That's one of the results that showed up. But I wrote yapping instead of yap instead of nap. That's what I wrote. And the first thing that pops up is a Reddit post about a cat. It's from yap to nap, and it's so cute. I'll probably put a link in the description of the when I upload this or somewhere. I'll put it somewhere, and it's such a cute video post where a cat is being pet and it's meowing, and so that's the yapping part. And as it's being pet, it basically like knocks out in like 20 seconds, and the last meow is like half cut off too. And so from yap to nap.
You're having a good nap? Is your sister really comfy? Did she make a good pillow?
It was very simple, and I was just like, cute. Now and then again, like instead of pressing record to again, like what prevented me was just like, oh, what if I name this episode from Yap to Nap or something like that, right? Like, and or like what if I name this podcast Yap to Nap instead of it's not me, it's you, Inyam, that I talked about in the previous episode. And so like all these things are getting in my way, right? I want it to be good. I want it to be professional. I want it to be perceived a certain way, and that prevents everything from happening, right? And so here I am yapping away what's stopping me. So what works? What did I decide through this coaching session with my mentor that would help me? And it's a little different because because clearly I've been having several sessions with my mentor coach, and so we've talked about a lot of things, and she kind of knows what I how I tend to think. And coaching is very interesting because it's just giving you a space to really see for yourself what's going on in your mind, because sometimes you just need that really good, um, we really call it the name escapes me. What's the term for like bouncing off ideas? I need something to bounce ideas off of. And typically you do that. I do that with, I operate by talking through things and generating ideas that way. It's like I might have an idea in my head, but if I really talk through it, it really helps me process, and see what I'm really imagining for my ideas to come to life. And I was realizing that, clearly, as I'm talking, you could clearly even see as I'm sharing in this podcast how there's so many things getting in my way that I just couldn't press record. And I'm basically overcoming that with somewhat of a brute force, but somewhat of a, I would, rather than brute force, I would say a form of surrender. It's like, do I really need all these things? And the answer is no. Um, I can create something now. It's just a bare recording. And as I develop my coaching business, as I get more comfortable with podcasting, I can definitely create more for this podcast. And so if you're with me, joining me in this journey for my coaching business, then it's like, it's amazing. Like you get to see this behind the scenes struggle busing as I'm sharing my journey and my thoughts and my struggles of just even getting this podcast recorded. I haven't even shared episode 0 with anybody. And I don't even know if I'm going to share this episode with anybody, but I did tell my mentor coach I would share this with, my peer support group, who are, people who took the coaching program, training program with me. They're my cohort. So I have a few of my buddies that I'm, happy to share this with. Um, is it ready for the world? I don't think that really matters, but I will probably upload this at some point. Um, and I have been naming them, Yapisodes. Episode 0 for the previous one and Yapisode 1 for this one. I don't know, maybe Yapisode 0.1. I don't know, but, uh, it's like the basically, I don't know. It can be super boring. I don't know, but I need to get I don't know if rid of is the right word. I need to get rid of. I want to overcome. I want to overcome this. This isn't it conversation. And what helps is if I surrender all the things, basically the perfectionism, right? All the things, the symptoms of wanting to make this better, and feeling discouraged when I can't get, it to be as good as I want to, and of like basically I'm running away from it and, not pressing record. And so basically today, what happened, right? Let's just I often use this phrase, and I guess it's deep into the podcast enough in which I probably could swear, but, uh, perhaps to make it more PG or, less explicit. I actually kind of swear a lot, and I'm trying not to on this podcast. If you see me in person or even when I talk with my mentor coach, the F bomb comes out here and there. And so basically, I'm saying F it, right? Just F it. We're gonna press record and we're gonna yap, right? Like just F it. You feel like taking a nap? F it. We're gonna yap, right? Like just stop running away, stop ignoring, or stop like just stop getting bogged down by things from pressing the record button. And so right now in this yapping, these episodes, they're obviously less structured. I'm just literally talking off the top of my head, what just literally happened, what I'm going through, and, getting used to just yapping. And perhaps it'll be more structured later. Great. If it is, great. If it's not, great. Like I will just keep yapping. And I hope that, I mean, if no one listens, I don't care because I'm doing this for myself. I want to create a podcast and I have to take baby steps. I take whatever I need. And if anything, I can look back on this. And maybe I don't like the sound of my own voice, but I can see how far I've come, right? Like, like I think that's the biggest thing. I think, because I don't know if I remember I shared, that's another reason why I want it to be structured because I don't remember if I shared this before. But at the same time, even if I shared this before, for new listeners, they'll be able to appreciate me repeating it. And so again, another conversation of why I want it structured. that prevents me from pressing record is repeating stories, but I am also letting that go. Surrendering to the yapping, just yap, record and yap, repeat stories as much as I want. And that way, it just becomes easier to just hit that record button and produce an episode. And as I did that tangent, what did I say? What was I gonna share? I completely forgot. Can I backtrack? Maybe I'll just cut this in post editing, but I also don't want to edit, that because that makes it harder for me. Like, just creates more work for me. Maybe in the future, I'll hire an editor, and that's okay. Oh, I was talking. Now I'm remembering. I was talking about repeating stories, and the story that I was gonna tell was something about probably about being a professor. Because yeah, I mean I used to be a professor. I have a PhD in electrical and computer engineering, and I my dissertation was on engineering education. I want to help students um, like transition from high school to college, especially in an engineering major that's difficult. I wanted to support them with mental health things, and because I mean it's one of those things where like often you come into engineering because you were good at math and science, right? Like you did well in those subjects, and obviously engineering is very much needed in this world. Same thing with programming skills, but the more skills you have, obviously, the better your resume and um, com- uh, what is the word? Uh, no, I was gonna say competitive, but yeah, that's what it's called, right? Like being competitive in the marketplace. And so I feel like engineers, I mean engineering, a lot of elitists, right? Comparing themselves, and I just wanted people to, uh, if they want to learn, you don't really formally learn how to learn. And so that's what I wanted to teach. I wanted to teach how to learn. And engineering was just the subject matter in which, or the discipline, the content, the background that I had. I could honestly teach in whatever subject. It's fine. Like psychology is fine too. I just don't have a degree in psychology. Um, I just really want to help people um, do what they want to do. If they want to learn engineering, they can. It's just no one really supported them in navigating college, navigating a difficult major, learning how to learn. Typically, I mean, and I don't know. I come from I come I don't know if privileged background is the proper way to say it. I grew up super poor, um, and I got into a magnet school in Virginia. Shout out to Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Tech. Um, and I loved school. I love learning, and I still do. And I'm a curious boy, or I guess a man now. I'm kind of old. I don't look like it. Maybe if you see a face reveal in the later in the future, you'll see that I'm not that. I'm not that. Well, I mean, maybe I look young, but actually, I'm kind of old. I'm in my mid 30s. Where am I going with all this yapping? I don't know, but that's I guess why I'm doing a episode, just yapping away. But that's my background, and I think I was connecting that background of being a professor with trying to be professional, right? Like create a. I'm a consumer of podcasts too, and so I kind of know what it sounds like, what they do, how it's produced, and if anything, um, I am like I love the podcasts that are so authentic, genuine, and real, right? Like just it exudes who they are. It's not as scripted. Sure, they have topics to talk about, but like it just really demonstrates who they are. And I want to create a podcast like that in which my listeners could have a chance to get to know who I am because in my coaching business, I want to support them. Um, and I don't even know if I explain what I'm doing for coaching that much either. But I am a life coach, or that's the training, and my specialty is in relationships. And that's not necessarily a dating coach, like someone who tells you what to do, how to get dates, how to flirt, but more so, what kind of relationships do you actually want to build in your life? Like, what kind of um, relationships do you want to have with your parents, with your siblings, with your kids, um, within your friend groups, and how are you showing up in this relationship? I mean, is clearly it has space also for romantic relationships, but because dating coaching and relationship coaching often has to do with dating and finding a romantic partner, mine obviously includes that, but also more. Um, because I think part of my train I don't know if training is the right way to put it, but my own research and studying as I was doing my dissertation, like trying to support students, I've delved in a lot of mental health topics and communication and for my own sake, learning how to listen and how to communicate or how do you have a conversation to make people feel safe, seen, heard. Uh, so it translates, I think, extremely well to coaching. And I've also had the privilege in my life to share or be the person uh, that people share their issues with. And so I'm the guy who everyone comes to advice. And it's so funny because my first relationship was when I was my first, I guess, serious relationship when I was 31. My first relationship, I'll probably repeat the story all the time, but my first relationship was when I was a freshman in high school. There was a girl from another school that came to our homecoming. I think it was probably like October, but we attractive girl. We got to talking, exchanged numbers, and back then we had AOL Instant Messaging, right? Our chat program for the boomers who know. If you know, you know. And she was my first girlfriend. And that story is also super awkward because it's like I thought we were at that point where we were clearly interested in each other, but we didn't define the relationship yet, and I didn't even know as a high schooler like how I should have done it properly, and basically I was telling everyone that we're dating, and she's just like, "Are we?" Like basically question marking, right? I was just like, "Oh, I guess I've never officially asked her out," and so I asked her out over Messenger, and obviously that's like the wrong thing to do, right? Like you should do it in person or over the phone. Like it's so impersonal doing through text. But that was my ninth grade self. That's what happened. And she said yes. And we dated for 2 weeks because she dumped me for another guy after 2 weeks. That's basically my first relationship, my high school relationship. And I hadn't I mean, there's plenty of people I liked, and just plenty of people who liked me. I'll probably share those more of those stories individually, like later in different episodes. Probably not a episode. It might be not a episode, but an actual episode that's more structured. When I talk about my past relationships, that's where those stories will probably come out. But that was my first official relationship, and I don't know if that counts, you know? Like we were young, we were dumb, but it was only 2 weeks and we only actually had one weekend in which we went out to watch a movie together. That was our date. And that was it. And the relationship was over. Um so my first serious relationship was after my PhD. I finished my degree in when I was 28, and then COVID happened and I ended up spending a lot of time with someone online. And that's a full story of itself, but that was at 31. My first serious relationship was at 31. Um, a late bloomer to say I don't know if say the least is, I don't know if I had high standards. There's a lot. We could definitely go into that later. But throughout my life, I've had the privilege of hearing and supporting my friends through their own relationships, and it's other life problems too, because I my one of my strong values is trying to be objective, right? Um, Trying to be fair, especially in a relationship when people come for support because they feel like their needs aren't being met, right? They feel like they aren't being heard. Clearly, they like each other and they want to work, but there's a lot of issues going on, and so they might be fighting and arguing. They might be coming to me. They usually don't come to me to pick a side. They're just usually trying to just understand and find support, right? And me as a friend, honestly, like I think for even my friends, what I would want from them is someone who has a good, who's grounded well, whose loyalty is not the friendship, but uh, like I don't know if truth is the proper way to put it, but someone who is loyal to truth. Because if I messed up, if I effed up, then I want to be held accountable for my actions. I want to be someone who learns from their mistakes. And so that's how I want to show up for my friends, because that's what I believe true support is. Um, and yes, I've had my issues with being too blunt. I've worked on that for such a long time, and I think many of my friends who have seen me past post grad school, like from undergrad to post grad school, a lot of them have said to me like, "You've changed so much," and I think that's a testament to how much I've worked on my communication skills, because I wanted to be someone who could communicate well, and I knew that I could come off certain ways that wasn't very kind, even though my intention was to help. And so, um, learn there'll be more. Maybe that's another episode that I could do about communication clearly. But um, because I've had that privilege of listening to all my friends, their issues, and trying to mediate for them as well, trying to help them manage their conflicts in a way that can uh, basically help each other be seen and heard, right? Because usually what happens, it's like he did this, and then the partner goes, but she did that, and it's just like, hold on a second, like let's take it one at a time. She said this, let's deal with that first, right? And things may come up because it's related, but we have to really keep our ducks in a row. We have to deal with something first, because what often ends up happening is the couples will argue over each other because they're both expressing, my needs aren't met, why don't you care? And if both people are like that, if both people say, your my needs are not being met, and you're being like, you need to change. If both sides are like that and stubborn and unwilling to change, then obviously nothing's going to happen. We call that, I believe, in John Gottman's, John and Julie Gottman's research, relationship researchers, excellent in what they do. They would call that gridlock, or at least that's where I learned it from. I don't know if it's more of a common term, but you're in gridlock, and someone needs to give, and there's ways to do that. There's ways to be fair, and but at the core of it is just making sure both parties feel heard, and so being able to communicate, being able to listen, being able to repeat what was heard, so that both parties are on the same page. And you can do that for every single issue. It gets messy when there's so much issues that haven't been resolved that it creates resentment, and so uh, it affects how you show up. And there's tons of things about that. And more episodes to come. But anyways, like to me, the reason why I became a relationship coach was that in the end, if there's a world problem that I want to solve, it is I want people to have healthier relationships. Yes, I can do engineering stuff, but I've never felt compelled. I guess you could say spiritually called, perhaps. I've never felt called to technology. I felt that even with our improvement in technology, and a simple example is like smartphones, right? It's great, very convenient, absolutely. But also with the smartphones comes social media, and that was also even before smartphones, right? But like, yes, there are means for us to connect with each other and connect with the world, but it also has created unimaginable amounts of anxiety, comparisons, unhappiness, like mental health issues, right? And so, uh, like we could talk about how many advances we made in medicine, but at the same time, like we have other issues with healthcare and money and other things that uh, put us in uncomfortable situations where we can't get the support that we need, right? And so, my world problem that I want to solve, or be contributing to solve, is relationships. Um, I th- I mean that's a big take or a big ask. But as a coach, I think everyone, like, no one gets into a relationship because they want to ruin. Well, maybe some do. I was gonna say ruin each other's lives. Oh man, because that does happen. It's like I want to just ruin him. Those kind of relationships do happen. Um, oh man. Um, but but in healthy relationships, we would want to support each other. love each other. Like no one gets married because they want to get divorced, right? Um, and so I want to help people really love each other. Um, uh, I think in English, there's I forget. In Greek, there's a lot of words for love. Like eros, I think is more of the lustful kind of love, but there's I mean, agape is like the sacrificial love. That's often associated with like Christianity and Jesus, who just sacrifices for all. If you've seen Wild Robot, it's kind of like that too, where the robot has I don't I mean they do. We're assuming that the robot develops emotions, and develops that kind of love for the forest creatures and wants to take care of all of them, right? At the expense of themselves of themselves. There is other forms of love where I forget what it's called, but it's the more obligation love, like with family or parents and kids, uh, like an obligation kind of love, like a duty kind of love. There's all these other languages, and so at the core of it, I want to help people love each other in a full and complete way. And I think a lot of people don't know how to do that. The same thing with like learning how to learn. I don't think people really learn how to love. Um, and what happens when you don't learn it formally? What happens is that you basically repeat what you've learned, and it's crazy how crazily accurate that is. And so most people will often say like, "I will never be like my parents," and some people, I would say, more or less people. I mean, whatever the phrase is, less people uh, actually stick to not being like their parents. It's more common that you're likely to repeat what your parents did, even if you don't want to. It's just like, oh, I'll never like I'll raise a hand against my kid or something. I'll never give a spank them or something, and like that happens. And that it's not because you don't love them. It's because you don't know what to do, and that's very common. And I think that happens in so many ways. Like it's something not a simple way. It's like outside relationships. It's like when you're angry. It's just like how many people have learned really how to regulate their anger. You're just told not like you're not supposed to throw tantrums. But no one really teaches you how to regulate that. And people will say just go to therapy, but there's so many things you can learn without having to go to therapy. But therapy is great. I fully support people in therapy. Um, that being said, I mean, I've also been to therapy, and and truth be told, my experience it's been very neutral. It's not actually one of them has been. I don't know if bad is the right word, but one I definitely did not connect with. But uh, it's they really want to support people. I think it's the same thing with doctors too, right? It's just there's just such a large number of people that they have to serve, and that they're overworked often, that their capacity to show compassion can be tested. And so maybe they just had an off day or off time, and so you do kind of have to shop around for your um, mental health providers, supporters, therapists. And so I would say don't give up. Um, I would say if you're interested in coaching, that's another option. It's a different mode of support, but I would say having gone through coaching myself, um, extremely beneficial. And so a quick plug into the difference between therapy and coaching. Therapy is someone who helps you um, basically manage some of your past traumas. It might be big T trauma, or small T trauma. It's just like some things kind of trigger you. And maybe I shouldn't even use the word trigger. It's just more of like you find yourself um, feeling a certain way and having large emotions and energy towards something that's happened, even though it's not happening now. Like for example, like even in a relationship, something simple is like, oh, my ex used to do this, and so now when my current girlfriend does something, then it elicits a response that's not that's linked to the past. And if you don't want that to continue, if you don't want to have that hold on you, therapy is a good place to find healing from that and move forward from that, so they can free that energy, so that it no longer has a hold on you, right? So therapy is more often looking at the past, and how it affects your present, such that your past doesn't have to be such a burden on you anymore. Or that it doesn't have to have like the chains that's holding you in the past doesn't have to be so heavy. There's some things that we just have to learn to live with. Like grief is one of them. How to navigate that, how we live with that energy so that it doesn't hold us down so heavily. Um, how do we process it? How do we go through it? How do we live with it? That's basically a lot of what therapy supports you with. Coaching is more of what are the dreams and goals that you have for yourself? How do you find fulfillment in life? And so we're looking forward and looking at the present. What would bring more joy, more happiness, more fulfillment? Like what brings at the core of it? You can use all these language, but it's like what brings you the most meaning in life. And so, for example, for me, if I were to work at a tech company, I uh, there's a good chance I wouldn't knock out any possibility, all the possibility, but there's a good chance that I wouldn't be happy with what I'm doing because technology for me doesn't bring that kind of fulfillment in life. But for me, when I interact with people, when I help, well, personally, I just enjoy connecting with people. But two, if I'm able to support them with something, that brings great fulfillment for me. And so for me, uh, that's also why I changed careers. Just a whole story on that. Why I left academia from engineering to become a relationship coach, life and relationship coach. But at the core of it, that brings me great joy and fulfillment. And so if I can make a career out of that, that would bring me so much more fulfillment. Right. I mean, I love teaching. I think that's the greatest part of what I did in academia. I loved spending time with my students. Teaching was secondary, right? Like content I can do, but it's more like the office hours, the interactions, helping them achieve their dreams and goals, like writing them recommendation letters. It's like it brought me great joy. Um, and so definitely like there's avenues in which you can find fulfillment, right? It doesn't have to be locked in one thing. I have chosen a different career path to find more of a career that fulfills meaning in my life and brings me that kind of satisfaction and contentment. Um, and it doesn't have to like for me it was that's part of my career move, but also something like I've been very unathletic. I don't know what is it called. I've I used to be fit. I don't even know if used to be is the right word, but um, quick story. I don't know if it's a quick story. This it's already been 40 minutes, but we can keep yapping. Um, this is continuing on with how coaching can support you. Like I want to be physically fit and healthy. I remember in 2018, that was 6 years ago, I went to Korea and I was getting a health checkup, and they're like, "You are by Korean standards, and like that's the population of the data. They're like, you're borderlining obesity, and so, but don't worry, like you're still young. If you exercise a little, you'll lose all that weight, right? No problem, right?" I was just like, I guess I should start working out, and that's like when I was about. So I'm about just under 5'11", and I was about like roughly just below 200 pounds, like 199, like basically you could say 200 pounds, right? Like, and so I was like, okay, like twist my arm, won't you? Like, oh well, I guess it's time for me to lose weight. And I'm of the type that's pretty like, I'm fairly highly disciplined. And so what I did was I figured out I stuck to an intermittent fasting cycle. That's probably the most consistent thing I've done. I still do intermittent fasting. It's been 6 years. I typically eat breakfast at 10, lunch at 2, and dinner at 6. 4-hour intervals, and basically a rough eating window of 8 hours. Um, I also tried a different window where I would eat breakfast at 8, eat lunch at 12, but dinner would be at 4. And so even though lunch would align with most people, dinner wouldn't. And so my social aspect suffered in terms of having dinner with friends if they wanted to, which is why I shifted it so that I now eat breakfast at 10, lunch at 2. So lunches can be awkward sometimes. And I can kind of shift that around too. Like I can skip breakfast, have a heavier lunch, um, like at 12. And so that'll be, there's, it's not strict. There's room for, there's wiggle room. And when I was trying to lose weight, more beyond the diet, or I guess intermittent fasting, I would jump rope before my first meal. And I don't recommend that. It's pretty hardcore. And there are plenty of times where I push myself too hard without in a fasted state where I did not have enough. I don't know if sugars is the right word, but man, there's plenty of times where I just want to like pass out, like black out, because I like push myself too hard. So I don't I don't recommend it. But I do want to get back into it because I have it when I so after jump roping for about 2 years, um, I basically lost 30 pounds. Like I went from like 199 to like 165. Um, Now I'm back up. So I mean, I probably basically stopped jump roping right around uh, when was it? 2020? Like basically, I don't know, like right around when COVID lockdown happened, right? And I basically have been very inconsistent with my jump roping. But so I'm like kind of slowly hitting 180. So I'm just like I should get back into a fitness routine. I remember from jump roping that basically I plateaued around 165, and if I want to lose more weight, or I mean, weight might have been fine. If I wanted to improve my body composition, I should have just I needed to do more resistance training, like muscle training, and so muscle training is something I probably want to get more coached on because it's not something that I enjoy doing. Part of it's I'm more comfortable with cardio, but I do remember starting out with jump roping. Man, 5 minutes jump roping, I'm dying, right? And so I do understand there like working out is definitely a journey, and it's easier the more consistent you are. And it's not about how hard you work out more than how consistent you work out. I would say, because the more consistent you are, the more opportunities you have to work hard. Well, that creates the opportunity, right? Not that you have to work hard every time. And so I want to create a schedule in which I can yap and podcast, press record, get more into my fitness routine, and make progress in building my coaching business. And so part of that building coaching business is being consistent with this podcast. I am hoping to yap at least once a week. I think that's a good goal to have. I failed last week. That's okay. Um, we learn from our mistakes. We figure out what's holding us back, get support from my mentor coach, and keep yapping instead of napping. And so, what's going to help me continue as I'm as trying to wrap up this episode? Get better at recognizing this isn't it conversation where if I'm trying to make it better and that's preventing me from pressing record. And so I guess my thought process is now is press record first. After you meet that quota, like one podcast a week, then have at it, right? Have at it. Uh, that's if you want that reward to be researching how to make it better, feel guilt free in doing so. But before then, we're gonna yap, and that's how I think that will help me press that record button and produce a podcast. And I think that's the one step at a time. Make it easy to take that one step, and helps me focus on that step. And by building these one step at a time, I will have a consistent, successful podcast. So, thank you for listening. I hope I didn't make you nap with my yap. Maybe I should stop saying that. I just sound so good for some reason. Um, Yapping is not necessarily a good thing in terms of its original definition, but we're using it lightly in the slang, vernacular, modern way of just saying talking. And so, yeah, thanks for joining me. And if you want to continue to see me grow, you can feel free to follow me. And I hope that I see you next time. Thank you. Take a nap.